Hey guys, it's Matthew, and if you're watching this video, chances are you are running ads. You're running new follower ads, you're running cold ads, you're running lead ads, and you're trying to set sales calls off the back of your ads. And chances are you have run into one of these roadblocks that is preventing you from getting the most out of your ads. Now, if you click the title of this video because of the title, then your goal is to book more sales calls and to get more qualified prospects onto a sales call with you or someone who might be closing on behalf of your business. Okay, so I'm just going to run you through the 8 steps to successfully set from ads. Okay, now I'm not an ads guy, I'm a sales guy, and every single component or mechanism of this 8-step process is something that I've used with my consulting clients or with the clients that I actually have set for in the past to obviously book them more sales calls and to just get them more sales. Okay, so before we get into this, I want to just tell you a bit of a story. Okay, so November last year, November 2024, or well, no, I think it was December actually. December. I was setting for a client who was running ads. Okay, they were paying, I think they were spending a couple of £100 a day on ads, and I think the ad setup was they were running cold traffic to a reel for a guide, and then they were commenting for the guide. I believe that was the setup. I'm not 100% sure. I can't really remember it too well. But what I do remember is that we had an insane amount of traffic. Okay, we had hundreds of people following every single day. Okay, so we had like 300, 400, 500, 600 people following every single day. And what that person had was they had 2 VAs from the Philippines sending new follower messages out every single day. And then my job as a setter was to come in to the replies and get them onto a sales call. Okay, now we did, my hay fever's going nuts. We did very, very well. Okay, we booked, I believe, about 57 sales calls that month. Oh no, it was January. It wasn't December, it was January. So we booked like 57 sales calls that month. And I booked 57 sales calls. But what we were noticing and what was happening was the show up rate was terrible. It was like, I think that the show up rate was 40%, which is pretty trash. Generally speaking, if you're running ads, you should have probably about a 50% show up rate from a sales perspective, at least. But when you do all these things, you'll get a higher show up rate. I can guarantee you that. So the show up rate was terrible. So we had a bit of reflection and we looked at, what could we change? And obviously, me being me, I picked up these components and made a change. And we made a change and changed a couple of tweaks in the setting process, everything like that. And lo and behold, the show up rate went to like 60%, which was awesome. Okay. Now, the whole point of that was to essentially say to you that if you're running ads and you're getting a terrible show up rate and you're not booking as many calls, it's not your ads. Okay, it's not your ads. It's your setting process. Now, we are going to fix this over the next, 20, 30 minutes, however long this video is. We're going to fix this one by one, okay? And we're going to fix every single bottleneck in your setting process from running ads so we can get you more show-ups, more sales calls, more closes, which I'm guessing you probably want. More show-ups, more sales calls, more closes. If you don't want that, then probably click off this video and go and watch some cat videos. Okay, so we've ticked that off. First step. Also, my pen is running out, so I need to be as concise and as quickly as possible because this dry eraser marker is dying. Okay, so before we get into an awareness, we need to talk about volume versus intention. Okay, now when you have leads, you need to figure out what do you rather focus on, the volume or the intention. Okay, actually I don't know why I put V here. It should be and. It should be and intention. So volume plus intention. There we go, that's cool. So, volume and intention, okay? Now, what do I mean by this? Right, so let's say, for instance, we have got 1,000 people follow you, right? Let's just say crazy numbers here, right? 1,000 people following you. Probably a good couple of them aren't going to have any serious intention, okay? Now, it's your job as a business owner to work out and to get the volume whittled down into actual people with intention, okay? Now, how can you do this? How can you work through the volume to find the intention, to find the golden nuggets of prospects? Now, what I would recommend is have a team of VAs or like a setter, okay? Now, I'd probably get a VA and train them, because you can essentially cheat code your margins, because if you have a setter, you have to give them between 5, 7.5 and even 10%. But with a VA, you can pay them, base and like 2.5% commission, okay? So what we did is we had 2 VAs doing the volume work, and then we had myself doing the intention work, okay? Now, what do I mean by intention work, okay? Intention work is figuring out if that person is ready for a sales call, taking them through the discovery phase, taking them through everything I'm about to talk to you about, and getting them onto a sales call. That's what I mean by intention work. Volume work is just send message, send message, send message, send message, tag, tag, tag. That's the volume work. And your resources aren't better spent on that. It's better spent on the intention work. But you need to have, it's like a funnel, right? So you need to have the volume, and you need to have the person, the VA, sifting through that volume to firstly contact them, to make sure, just to make sure you contact them. But secondly, to give them the opportunity to show intention. Because let's say, for instance, you send 1,000 messages out from 1,000 new followers, you get a VA to send those 1,000 messages out, and you get 400 replies, so a 40% reply rate. And then those people show intention to carry on the conversation and to obviously talk about their goals. That's important to do. So that is significant. It's very significant that you use volume and use a setter to find out the intention of that person when they follow you. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to run ads and then just have a lot of trash come through the inbox because you haven't filtered through them properly. You haven't used a VA to send the messages, and you haven't used a setter to qualify and everything like that. Okay, so that's just something I wanted to touch on before we get into the actual common problems that comes with obviously setting from ads. So let me just draw a line in the sand here. Great, my pen has died. That's amazing. So I'm going to give that a tick because we've covered that. So unawareness, discovery, urgency, qualification, no-shows. Qualification and urgency are the 2 most important ones, okay? Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you a way for you to combine the both of them and qualify someone with urgency, okay? But before we do that, we need to get into the unawareness stage. Now, I have been closing for someone who's running ads, and what we've been noticing is we've been getting onto a sales call. The team has been getting onto a sales call. I've been getting onto sales calls with prospects who are brutally unaware of what they've got themselves onto a call for. I'm just going to grab some water quickly. But they are brutally unaware of what they're getting onto a call for. I took a call with someone yesterday who thought that this service, this product was one-to-one personal training in Australia. This guy's a coach in Dubai online, okay? So you can see how there's a disconnect there between awareness of the actual solution, awareness of the product and everything like that. So we need to tackle this before we do anything else, okay? So that's the problem that people get. They think that, oh, this guy's just like a PT, a one-to-one online coach, everything like that. Now, the way that you essentially handle that is through just being direct with people, okay? Now, I'm not quite sure why people don't have any awareness as to why someone's like a PT, someone's like an online coach. But what you can do is you can use your messaging to increase that awareness. Now, what do I actually mean by that? So as part of like the discovery process and everything like that, what you can say to someone is like, oh, like what made you feel like having, an online coach? Or that doesn't make sense. What makes you feel like having an online coach would help you achieve X, Y, and Z? okay? Because what we're doing there is we're just literally inserting what we actually do, okay? Which is obviously going to make them aware, because if they say, oh, I think having a coach should do blah, 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 they've acknowledged that they're aware of what you do. Because the last thing you want is to spend hundreds, thousands on ads and then just get a whitewash of people coming onto sales calls with you, your closer, your team, and think that you're an impersonal personal trainer. Okay, it's like, it'd be a waste if I spent money on ads for people who think I'm a business mentor. I'm not. I help people with sales. So it's very important that you make them aware of that in the DMs, because not everyone is going to go onto your profile, check your profile out, and have a scour. That's the word. A scour through your profile, and they're not going to scour through what you do and take the time to look. Okay. What you can also do as well is you can make a pre-call video, like a Loom or a WhatsApp or something like that. And you can essentially lay the expectation out of the sales call before the sales call. So you could make a video basically saying like, this is what's going to happen on the call. This is what's going to be covered. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to go through. And you can obviously put your solution in there. So you're like, we're going to show you exactly how all the online coaching works, blah, 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 blah. Because then you set the expectation that, look, this is online coaching. This isn't personal training. You know, this isn't an in-person PT. And you can really lay out the expectation about what you are doing, obviously, like what you actually do, okay? So that covers the unawareness, because that is a big thing. Because when people come onto a sales call with you and they're unaware of what you actually do, like, how can you close someone on that? Because they don't even have a clue what you actually do, okay? Discovery. Biggest part of any sales process, in my opinion, okay? Whether it's a sales call, whether it's booking sales calls, discovery is king. And I know that you all want to find out how we can use urgency to qualify, or how we can use qualification to create urgency, but that's next, okay? But discovery, you cannot sleep on discovery, okay? Discovery is the single largest contributing factor to if someone closes or not, okay? Now, when you are booking people through ads, when you are booking sales calls through ads, the discovery is more important, because these people are cold. They don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you, and they're cold, and you know nothing about them. And I've seen this happen many, many times, where people have booked people onto sales calls and there's been like zero discovery done, which then, funnily enough, contributes to no-shows, okay? The lack of discovery will always contribute to the lack of no-shows. It's the same with discovery, urgency, and qualification. These three, if done incorrectly, or if not done at all, or not done to the highest standard, will largely contribute to no-shows. So if you're getting a lot of no-shows from sales calls that you're booking from ads, you need to do more discovery, you need to build more urgency, and you need to do more qualification, because they directly correlate to the amount of no-shows that you get, okay? So what do I mean by discovery? Discovery is simple, right? Find out their point A, find out their point B, find out what is stopping them from achieving point B, find out why they need to do it now, find out what happens if they don't need to do it now, find out if they can invest in themselves, find out if they have the time to invest in themselves, and find out if they want to actually invest in themselves, okay? That's easy. That's discovery, ABC, 1, 2, 3. But that is going to be the most important thing, because if you do not get discovery, urgency, qualification right, you're going to get no shows and no closes, okay? The lack of this creates a surplus of that, unfortunately. So discovery is really, really, really important. And what I've seen from working with a few consulting clients, I was going to say consultation, consulting clients, is before they come to me, they typically have a document with questions on the document, sort of like laying out what are the questions to ask before you get on a call. Now, that's okay. It's not the best thing in the world, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not good. And when you're running a script and when you're setting from ads, you don't want to have a document with loads of different questions now. That is not, what's the word? You want your conversations to be reactive, okay? So you're reacting to the last message the person sent you, right? So I'll explain what that means in a minute, but when you have a script or when you have like a question document, your conversational flow is set in stone. There's no fluidity to it. And what you're not doing is when someone presents you with like a pain point in the DMs or anything like that, because you're like, shit, I need to ask the next question to follow the script straight through so I can have more throughput on the script, you're not digging into that pain point, okay? Now it's like a bruise, right? So let's say, for instance, for some reason you hated my guts, okay? And you didn't want to murder me violently, you just wanted to cause me a bit of pain and discomfort, right? So like, let's say, for instance, I had a bruise on my arm, right? Like a pretty nasty bruise, and you wanted to cause a bit of pain. What a script is doing, instead of you pushing down on that bruise and causing me a lot of pain, you're just pressing down on a random piece of my skin, my anatomy. And I know that's a pretty terrible analogy, I just sort of winged that. But what I'm trying to say is when you use a script, you're glossing over all the pain and just moving on to the next step because it says so on your script. And then someone will present you a pain point and you'll gloss over it because the script says so. And what that doesn't allow you to do is it doesn't allow you to really discover and really dig and really find out the emotional leverage that you need in order to get them onto a sales call, because you're not pressing on the pain. You are just skipping over the pain onto the next question. And you want your conversations to be reactive, right? So you want to leverage the last message to create the next message. Now, what do I mean by that? You need to use the AQA framework, okay? Now, AQA stands for acknowledge, question, and ask, okay? Now, this is like a super short, simple way to just never run out of conversations. But let's say, for instance, someone says, I want to lose 10 kilograms, okay, to you in a message. Acknowledge, question, ask. Oh, okay, that's cool. 10 kilograms is cool. If you don't mind me asking, AQA, acknowledge, compliment, ask. ACA, sorry, not AQA, ACA. Acknowledge, compliment, ask, okay? Say, for instance, someone says they want to lose 10 kilograms. Okay, that's a great goal. Losing 10 kilograms is a great goal. Just like out of interest, like what made you feel like, why pick 10 kilograms specifically? Okay. Whereas with the script and everything like that, I've genuinely seen this where people have said like pain points to that person and they've just skipped over it. Be like, oh, okay, like, so do you feel like having a coach would help? It's like, whoa, like there's so much more emotion behind the surface, below the surface for us to discover before we even ask that question. And not having a framework to follow and having a script really does hinder your ability to do discovery, because ultimately the deeper discovery you do, man, the deeper everything else is going to be, which is going to contribute to no shows and no closes. Because surface level discovery in the DMs doesn't get people to open up and to get emotionally invested in the conversation to get onto a call, which then means you can't take the call and close them. Okay, so if you have a lot of no shows, chances are you need to fix your discovery process. And I don't just mean asking more questions. What I mean is digging into the pain, okay? If you want help with that, just like click the link in my bio. Just click the link down below this video. And I've actually got a free training you can have. Or if you want to work directly with me, you can do that. Okay, cool. So discovery ticked off. Urgency and qualification, right? No. I've created a loop in your brain where you wanted to know about these two put together, and I'm going to close that loop in just a minute, okay? So urgency, what is urgency? Okay, so urgency is, why do they need to do it now, okay? You're watching this video, right? Chances are you're watching this video because you are sick and tired of having no shows and no closes and not booking the amount of calls that you want from ads, right? So why do you need to fix this problem now? Like, why can't this problem wait? Well, chances are you're spending a shit ton of money on ads and you want to maximize your return. Awesome. Okay, but like, why do you really want that? Like, why does this need to be fixed now? Like, why can't we just keep running the ads and seeing how we're going? Oh, because I'm going to waste money on ad spend and I'm not going to hit my next best month in business. Okay, cool. So that's the urgency. That's why you need to fix this now, so you can prevent you from wasting money and so we can get you to hit your next ceiling, break through your next ceiling in business. Sorry. So urgency. If someone does not feel strongly compelled to solve this problem now, they're not going to show up to your call. Okay, when you book them in, they're not going to show up to the call at all because they're not going to give a flying horse. Flying horse? That'll stick. A flying horse or a flying horse shit about turning up because they don't need to. Like, oh, this can be put off. Yeah, I don't need to show up now. I can just wait. Okay, so we need to develop urgency. Okay, so there are two ways to develop urgency. Okay, we've got future pace consequence, and we've got just actual urgency, okay? Now, what do I mean by future pace consequence? So one of the strongest things that you can do is get someone to envision what happens if they do not fix this problem now, okay? Now, what this is going to do is how you frame this, first of all, is you ask that person, okay, so like what happens 6 months down the line if you continue to struggle with X? Oh, you know, I feel unconfident, I feel this, I feel that, I feel this, and I won't fit in my clothes, and some will be ruined. Okay, and what would that do to you personally? Oh, it'd make me feel shit, it'd make me feel that. You get the point. So what we're doing here is we're getting this person to turn their own cogs in their head, to consciously and subconsciously tell themselves that think this needs to change, because if they don't, X, Y, and Z negative outcome is going to happen. Okay, so that's one way that we can create urgency. Okay. Now another way that we can do it is by simply asking the question. Let me just have some of this. But yeah, we can just simply ask the question. We can say to the person, okay, so if you don't mind me asking, like, what's made you feel like you need to do X now? Oh, okay, well, you know, I've just been stuck in this position for a while and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so would you say that you're like sick of being stuck in this position and you feel like you need to change? Yeah, I do. Okay. Just like why though? Like help me understand that. Like what's made you feel like you need to change now? Why not wait for like 6 months down the line? And that would pull out the reason for urgency. Now, if you've done these correctly, discovery and urgency, there is going to be a high likelihood that they show up to your sales call. Okay. Because they're emotionally invested, they've opened up, you found the pain points, and you've tied it to a reason that cannot wait, which is going to make them compelled to show up for the sales call. Okay. So now we move on to what is probably the most important part of all of this, qualification. Okay. Now, what do I mean by qualification? So there's price, time, and value qualifications. Now, price is the most important one. I'm going to just shelf that for a minute and explain the two because they all tie into one another. And price will make sense once I've explained the two others, right? So let's just shelf price for a minute and think about time and value. So ultimately, value qualification is the stepping stone to everything else, okay? Because if they don't value it, they're not going to put time into it and they're not going to invest in it. So first off, they need to value their goal. So this comes back into discovery. Why do they need to achieve the goal that they need to achieve? What pain or problem or pleasure is it solving or getting for them? And ultimately, why is that important to them? This ties into the discovery, because if we do not do the discovery, they're not going to be qualified for value, which means they're not going to be qualified for time or finances. Okay. Now, it's pretty much a given that people will do what they want to do, right? This video is going to be X amount of minutes long, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. If you did not value the outcome from all of this, or if you did not value solving each one of these problems, you would not stick around till the end of this video. So think about that from your side quickly. And let's think about it from your prospect's perception, right, or perspective. They need to emotionally value this goal and have the urgency to achieve that goal. Otherwise, they're not going to be qualified for it. They're not going to put the money into it. They're not going to put the time into it. So let's value qualify people. And what you can do to do that is ask them like, oh, like, why do you feel like this goal is so important to you? Now, they haven't said it's important, but we're assuming that it is. And by asking that question, they are going to tell us and tell themselves why it's important to them, which is going to open up more discovery naturally as a byproduct. So that's value clicked off. So VTF. So let's just take that out for a second. So that's value. Value's qualified. Now let's talk about time, and then we go into finances. So time, qualifying someone for time is pretty easy, because if they value their goal, they're going to put the time into it. You know, people have time. Like whether someone works like 10-hour days, they've got time. They've got time. But in order for them to have time for it, they need to value it. Okay. And then the way that they value it is through the discovery process. okay? Because if someone stays surface level about their goals, they're not going to want to change because there's no emotional leverage or no emotional lever or no emotions pushing them to change. So once we've qualified for value, then we can automatically qualify for time. Okay, so the big one, finances. Now, finances goes into two parts. So we've got CBT and we got RBT. Really good drawing, by the way. So we have got CBT and RBT. Now, what the fuck is CBT and RBT? I'm going to explain. So when a prospect comes into the DMs, right, before we get to the point of offering them a call, they're going to be in CBT, which stands for cost-based thinking. Okay. Now, when someone is in cost-based thinking, you are not going to close them. Okay. And the reason is that each branch of thinking stems off into two things. So we've got logic and we've got emotion. Okay, so we've got the two ways of thinking are logic and emotion. Have you ever heard that saying that people buy with emotion and justify with logic, right? When someone is in cost-based thinking, they are trying to justify with logic. Now, logic is numbers and data. Emotion is thoughts and feelings, okay? So when someone's in cost-based thinking, they're thinking in terms of numbers, okay? And what does that mean? It means that they're looking for the cheapest possible solution to the problem, which chances are isn't you, because you value your business, you've done phenomenally well, and you probably charge higher ticket than most because you know your worth, which is cool. I agree. I think you should charge that, which is cool. But please understand that you're not going to close anyone, or your setters aren't going to get people on a call if they're in cost-based thinking. Okay, so we need to understand that first. So with cost-based thinking, they are in logic mode, not emotional mode. Whereas results-based thinking, we've got logic and then we've got emotion. When we get someone in results-based thinking, they come out of logical thinking and they move into more emotional thinking. Okay, so let's just get that circle because it's bugging me. So when we move someone into results-based thinking, that means that we get them thinking emotionally. Like I said, people buy with emotion, justify with logic. Oh, yeah, that should be fine. When we get someone in results-based thinking, then they're going to slip into more emotional ways of thinking, which means they're likely going to get onto a call or close. How do we do that? How do we do that? So we want to qualify someone for finances. What we want to do is we want to go through the discovery process, go through the urgency process, go through all this, and then ask them the penultimate question, which is, do you feel like this is something that you can invest in? Now, obviously it's contextual and it goes from conversation to conversation, but ultimately that's what we want to ask. And this is before we offer them the call. You do not get onto a sales call without finding out if someone's got any money to invest into the coaching. Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want your closer, and I've been there, trust me. Someone has set a call for me before and it's been for advice. Like, the expectation of the call was that I'm there to give advice. I ain't there to give advice, I'm there to collect cash, okay? Now, we don't want that happening, right? So what we need to do is we need to find out, before we get someone onto a call, if they can financially invest. Now, chances are, if you ask someone to get on a call, like they're probably gonna ask about finances, they're probably gonna ask about like how much it costs. But we need to find out first if they're in a position to invest. So what we can do, and a really good question to ask, is for you to find out the goal and the urgency and everything like that I've just covered, and put it into a nice little question before you transition into the call. Okay, so what that essentially looks like is you can say, okay, like, do you feel like achieving X, you can avoid X, is something that you feel like you want to invest into? That's a way you can ask for a call. Or depending on how much traffic you've got, like if you've got hundreds of leads and like hundreds of active conversations a day, and it's like, shit, there's a lot of people and you don't really want to spend the time qualifying people, what you can do, and this is a bonus tip, is you can have a pre-call form where essentially it will qualify the person financially on the form. So it'd be like, how much can you invest into doing X, Y, and Z today? And then have like certain amounts, like nothing, 500, 1,000, 2,000, you know, something like that. So that's something that we can do to qualify people. And that's essentially the qualifying process in its entirety. So we've boxed that off. So what have we done here? So I've told you my story. I've told you about volume and intention. I've told you about unawareness. I've told you about discovery. I've told you about urgency, about qualification. So let's just tackle no-shows for a minute. Now, before I go into explaining why it's not your ads, I want to talk about the no-shows, because no-shows are the symptom, not the problem, right? So like I've told you previously, these three here, if you get no-shows, right, this is the problem. If I can circle that. Okay, so if you get no-shows, that is the symptom of this problem. If you have a high no-show rate, it's because you haven't done discoveries, you haven't created a deep emotional reason for that person to get onto the call. You haven't created urgency because they're like, I don't need to take this call now because I haven't really got that deep of a problem and I don't need to solve it now. And you haven't qualified them, because if someone knew that they were, let's put it like this. If you dug deep on someone and found out a lot of things about someone's reasons for wanting to change, and then you established urgency and consequences, and they were qualified, they're not going to show up. They're not going to not show up for the call because they've got no reason to not show up, because they've got a painful ass problem. They realize they need to solve it, otherwise there's going to be major ramifications, and they know that they can afford it, and they know that they can invest in it. So there's absolutely no reason at all as to why they wouldn't show up. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on that, because I see a lot of people get no-shows and they're like, oh my God, it's my ads. It's not your ads. It's the fact that you gloss over pain in the DMs in order to get that person onto a call as soon as possible, and then you feel like it's your ads because they don't show up. It's not your ads. It's the fact that you're not doing this very thing that the DM process is designed for. The whole point of the DMs is to do discovery, create urgency, and get qualifications so that you can get people on a call. It's not to just gloss that over and to rush someone onto a call, because when you rush someone onto a call, there's no emotional buy-in from them, because they don't need to get onto the call. So you need to make sure that you take your time, slow down a bit, and ask the relevant questions to move people through each process of the DM frame. Okay, and that is how you can prevent no-shows. Okay, now leading swiftly on to it's not your ads. I've covered this. So the reason that you're getting no-shows, what that's going to do is it's going to be like, right, I need to change my top of funnel ad, I need to change my copy, I need to do this, because you're getting no-shows. You're booking people on calls, which is what the whole point of the ads is, to get people booked on calls. But what you're not doing is this, which is then leading you to having this. Oh, dropped my pen. So if you're ever sat there feeling like, right, I need to change up my ads. No, you don't. You probably don't. You need to change this up first. And then if obviously you do all this and then you still get no shows, then probably have a look at your ads to see if you're talking to the right people. But if the people who are in the DMs off the back of your ads are a perfect fit, their problems align with what you help people with, and then they don't show up for a call, it's not your targeting, it's not your ads. It's the fact that you are not getting them to emotionally buy into the conversation that you're going to have on Zoom. So that is essentially that. Now, once you get people onto the sales call, obviously it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. But I've made a sales call framework, so if you need to watch that to refresh yourself on how to close people, or you want to send it to your closer to obviously watch, then do that and click on that video next.